Would that bring it to the total amount if he'd been,
What?
would that bring it to the total amount if he'd done another sheriff? Not quite sure, or you saying?
If he had sheriff's experience, he would get the new salary. If he
Full
doesn't,
salary.
he would get the lower salary.
Representative McConkey and then Representative Umberger.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. While I'm pleased to see that Representative Babson in my history has just voted for an increase in a sheriff's salary, which I don't believe has ever happened, so dogs can learn a new trick. I don't like the fact of tying it to an extremely high standard. There's only X number of people in our state that have ever been a sheriff, so. And I would then question whether we should be reconsidering the motion and the vote that was taken, and I disagree with what we're doing. So I will vote against this because I believe he's setting a standard that does not make sense in my determination. If you just got to a point that you raised a elected official's salary, I think it's counterproductive now to tie it to an unreasonable standard.
Okay, Representative Umberger.
Yes, I totally concur with what Representative McConkey said, especially if we are placing a burden on the sheriff and we are not placing a burden on the Registry of Deeds or the county attorney. If you want to place that same burden on those other two officials, then that might be a different story. I probably wouldn't agree with it. But the point is that when you run for office, to the best of my knowledge, there are no qualifications in the RSAs that says what you have to be in order to be elected to that office. It says we'll have those offices, but it doesn't say in order to be a county attorney you have to be this, in order to be a sheriff you have to be this. We would like people to have that experience, but in truth that's up to the voters to make the decision whether or not they want I won't say an unqualified person, who knows, but yes, that's a good word, a neophyte. So there's no way that I can support a two-tier salary position for the sheriff.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of Representative Babson's motion to, if there's a new sheriff elected, the salary would be $60,375, and the previous experience would be you already a sheriff somewhere else. Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand.
I think I lost.
One. All those opposed?
Wait for it, Dave.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1 to 10, it loses. Good try, Representative Babson.
Now,
Okay, now the second part of the motion is at $250. And if we can make it clear that this is just for uniforms and boots or whatever, clothing, and not have to worry about how a sheriff is in his law enforcement police standards, what he carries, what he puts on or whatever. So go ahead, Representative Umberger.
okay, so plus 250. Okay. All I'm suggesting is that the $250 shall be provided each year shall be provided for upkeep and or purchase of either personal clothing or uniforms. And what I'm saying there is, and that's why I get back to the initial outfitting of the sheriff, did not include uniforms. Okay? If I'm a deputy sheriff and I come to work for the county, then I get uniforms. But as the sheriff, as the high, what's he called, the high sheriff?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay. The high sheriff would get this $250 to do with what he perceives to be necessary, but not be able to charge the county any money for any upkeep, new uniforms, new boots, whatever.
Okay, Representative Algren and then Representative Schmidt.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I thank the representative for her comments. And I partially concur, however, unfortunately, the motion is a little too narrow and therefore it's somewhat flawed. And that is because that we have had sheriffs in the past actually wear the uniform, okay? And if you are wearing the uniform as a deputy wears the uniform, then it is reasonable for us to pay for the uniform and the cleaning of the uniform, because it is, in accordance with IRS standards, a uniform, which we would be allowed to pay for that benefit as such, okay?
Perhaps.
If he's wearing a suit, okay, then that is not necessarily considered a uniform, so therefore it doesn't comply as being a uniform. That's his personal clothing. Okay, so I believe for us to say that if a sheriff wants to wear a uniform, that we shouldn't pay for the cleaning of that uniform or the cost of those uniforms. I think that I don't agree with that. I think that the county should, because you're not, that is something that is a uniform. And if we consider that part of the job, and we do that for the other employees, it seems reasonable to me that we would do that. What it comes down to, and what the commissioners are charged with, is if the sheriff is paying for the laundering or the cleaning of his personal clothing, and that's not in compliance with the IRS standards, and you would prefer to allow that, it needs to be added to his W-2 as part of income. As you just have to do that, and that's where it lies. I think we're adding $250 because we're going to let him not pay for that doesn't really stop them from doing it. That's a whole nother ball of wax, and I think that we are not. It's just not wise for us to pass this motion based on those 2 points.
Representative Schmidt and then Representative Umberger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could direct this to the commissioners, after having this debate for endless hours, it seems to me that you had agreed to update the uniform policy for the county.
Right. We're still working on that, but we've got them pretty well identified.
Yeah. Now, if I could follow up, Madam Chair, I would much prefer to see this addressed on a county policy issue, including Representative Algren's concerns should the next sheriff decide to look like, wear the stars and a uniform, rather than to single the sheriff out separately. After all our discussions, I think we made it very clear to the commissioners that we really needed a solid policy on uniform allowances. They've agreed to do that. I would recommend that we let them do that. And we always have the option to review that policy, and then we can move forward.
Yes, Representative Umberger and then Representative McCarthy.
Yes. Let me just say that having served in the military as an officer, I did not receive a clothing allowance. I paid for all of it myself, all my uniforms, all my uniform upkeep, everything else that I needed. So, it is true that the worker bees got the uniforms, and that's part of the union contract, that's what they will receive. The sheriff is not a member of the union, and so he does not fall under the same category as do the remaining deputy sheriffs. It's a separate category. Now, what has happened in the past is that we all have assumed that the sheriff should get whatever the union contract says. We don't have to make that assumption. And that's why I wanted to designate this money separately so that he or she knows that they cannot assume that they receive whatever a union member receives. And that's why I asked for it to be separated. But to say that the sheriff automatically gets this money is not true.
Representative McCarthy.
Yes, I agree entirely with Representative Umberger, and I too was an officer, and it cost me thousands of dollars for my initial uniform purchase, and I got no uniform allowance either. And one other point, Madam Chair, if I may, I'd like to mention something about the remarks of Representative Schmidt, leaving it up to the commissioners to do a uniform study, et cetera, et cetera. I don't agree with that for the simple reason, they might be doing a uniform study for the members of the county, the employees of the county. But state law leaves it specifically up to the delegation to set the salaries and benefits, including uniforms and everything else, for elected employees. And by saying, no, let the commissioners do it, that's usurping our authority.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion that as part, we split it, that the 250 be provided for upkeep and purchase of personal clothing and uniforms. Okay? Everybody hear where we are? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Whoa.
5. Those,
We got some more.
wait a minute, what? Do it again.
You just had a couple more raise their hands.
Raise your hands to say yes.
We voted
1,
to split, Madam.
2, 3. We're voting on the 250.
Oh, okay.
We're voting on the 250. Raise your hand.
Can we have a parliamentary
1,
inquiry?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. Those no, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. 7 to 4. So that 250 passes. And it'll be good that we don't have to have the discussions at, budget times and quarterlies that the sheriff has gone off and bought uniforms, bought clothing. Okay, now, let's go to, let's see, I have one other.
Treasurer.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
do we need to say anything about the probate officer, whatever they're called now? That salary was set by the state at $100 a year.
You're
But-
talking bailiffs?
No, probate. We still have, there is still a probate officer.
But we don't do that.
I think the administrator of the courts takes care of probate. All we do is vote on probate. We don't set a salary for that. Is
Okay.
that right?
I think that's right.
Because it's set at $100. I mean, that's what the state set it at.
Yeah, and I think
Okay.
that that's what the
All right,
administrator.
so we don't need to do anything on
No,
probate.
no.
Okay.
So, let's look at our treasurer. Our treasurer has a salary right now of $4,725. Does anybody want to make a motion or change or what? Well, we're right on the ball here. Come on, what are we gonna do?
Leave it
Make a
alone.
motion
Make
that
it-
remains the same.
Yeah, a
Yeah,
second.
there's a motion by Representative Babson, second by Representative Fleck, to keep the salary at 4,725. Okay, any discussion? All those-
I raise the obvious question, if I could,
Yes,
Madam Chairman?
Representative McConkey?
It seemed to me, if I was following the delegation's vote and you thought people were worth 3% more, I guess I wonder why the treasurer isn't worth any more money.
Does anybody want to do anything, discussion-wise?
Um,
Go ahead, Representative Umberger.
Sure. Although I didn't make the motion, I would say that the treasurer's position falls well within the standards of what treasurers make across the county, with the highest treasurer is paid, the average max is $5,000. And I think that this falls within the salary range for treasurers. And so that's why I will support this particular motion.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor of leaving the treasurer at 4725, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 to 0, so that passes, okay? Representative Umberger?
Okay, I understand we're paying a assistant treasurer, and yet that number doesn't show up on here anyplace.
Well, the
And I'm-
deputy sheriff the deputy treasurer is not elected.
Deputy treasurer, I believe, gets $200.
Okay, so because it's not an elected
It's in
position.
the budget,
Not elected,
Okay,
not in here.
yeah.
that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, now let's go to the,
Madam Chair,
yes,
May I
Representative
ask a
McConkey.
question?
Mhm, McCarthy, go ahead.
thank you, Madam Chair. A question of the Commissioner.
Mhm.
Commissioner Sorensen, is it not true, did I not read somewhere where the deputy treasurer is only to work when the treasurer is not here?
Correct.
And he only gets paid for those days?
I think it's a flat rate of $200.
No, it is
For the whole
that
year.
day.
It's a flat rate of $200, what,
A
a year,
year.
a month, a
For the
day?
year.
A year.
For the
No.
year.
200 a year?
It's when
Yeah,
he's
different.
absent, $15 a day, when he's only
Up to
absent.
200?
Up to, yes.
Well, would you
I
you
stand
check into
corrected
that?
if
I
she's-
believe
she's
I
got
read
it.
where it said that they only get paid for the days that they
If they
are
are
actually
out.
working,
Yes.
and the only days they're allowed to work is when the treasurer
That's
himself
true.
is not here.
That's
Yeah.
true.
All right, but we don't need to discuss the deputy sheriff, the deputy treasurer, because it's not an elected official, okay? Okay, let's go to chairman of the commission. Right now, it's at 10:05. The commissioners, the regular commissioners that are not chairman are also at 10:05. Any discussion? Yes, Representative McConkey.
Motion to keep the salaries at the same.
Is there a
Keep-
second?
Keep the commissioner's salary chair at the same, $10,500.
So for all three commissioners at 10:05? Is there a second?
What did you, I didn't hear that.
10:05, the way they are right
Keep it the
now.
same.
Oh, I thought you
Leave
might
all
do
three
that.
at the same?
Yeah. Representative, is there a second to that?
Sure.
Second to Representative Umberger. Everyone understand, keep the commissioners, all three commissioners at 10:05, as they are right now. And they do not have, you don't have the option of a single-person health care benefit.
No benefits.
No benefits. Yes, Representative McCarthy.
Is it, may I ask, is it not ordinary or normal that the chair get a few dollars more than the other two commissioners? And obviously, we don't do that, but I would like to see that.
I make a motion.
Do you want to
then
make a
an
motion to
amendment.
amend?
Well, there's already a motion, it's like I could amend it, I guess. I would like to make a motion that amend the motion that it stays at 10.5, except that the chair of the commission would get an additional $500 annually to 11,000.
Second.
Who was that?
Representative Knox. So there is a motion that the amendment to the motion of 10.5, that the chair of the commission would get $11,000. Made by Representative McCarthy, second by Representative Knox. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Madam Chairman.
Yes.
Let
Representative,
Sorensen go.
do you want to,
If I could.
you say something and then I'll have Commissioner Sorensen.
I believe that it was previous commissioners that had brought up the point that they share the load, and many selectmen offices that have a chair usually is on a rotating basis. I don't know what their position is here. But I would suggest that many of these other occupations or elected officials walk in the door with some level of qualification. I've always been thankful for the quality of commissioner we've been able to receive, but I would suggest that if they were a registered voter and walked this earth, that they could be a commissioner. So I think their salary at present is sufficient, and I won't vote in favor. The only way I'd vote in favor of raising the chairman salaries if we were to reduce the other 2 commissioners by a proportionate share, which then would make it just as fair also.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I just have a question.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Sorensen, I forgot. Go ahead, Representative Mero and then Sorensen.
Commissioner Sargent, do you have a rotating chairmanship?
We're elected,
No, the
we vote, we don't rotate
But you
necessarily.
don't necessarily, it's the vote.
Right.
But you do normally rotate some?
No.
No, you don't,
No.
okay.
Only based on voting of the 3 of us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Commissioner Sorensen.
I would say that before I was elected, the chairman did get $500 more. When I got elected, the 3 commissioners, I felt when I was chairman that they all did their load equally to the chairman. And that's why it went even for all 3 commissioners at that time.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of the amendment to up the chairman's salary to 500, raise your hand.
I just,
1, 2, 3.
I'm not voting for it.
Okay, there's 3 yes. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 to 3. 3 to 8. Yep. So, that didn't go anywhere. So now we've got going back to the main motion of the 3 commissioners at 10-5. Do you have a question?
Yes, I have, I guess, an inquiry. Wouldn't it be, based on kind of what's happening what I see what's happening right now, wouldn't it be more appropriate for us to vote first on the commissioner's salary and establish what that's going to be, and then we can decide what the chair's salary would be based on what the other commissioners? So I felt like we were putting the cart before the horse. That's why I voted. One of the reasons why I voted against the amendment.
Well, we did say that the chairman's salary would both add 500, which would make it 11,000. So we did attach it to the 1050.
We voted that down,
Right.
We voted the increase down. So now we're back to the main motion that all 3 commissioners get 10.5.
Okay, so the motion is for the commissioner's salary.
All 3.
Okay, thank you.
3.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I misunderstood that part.
Okay. So we're back now to all 3 commissioners at 10.5. All those in favor, raise your hand. 11 to nothing. My goodness gracious. That's good. Okay, we have set the salaries, right? We don't need any more salaries set?
That was easy.
Let's take a 5-minute break or a 3-minute break, come back at about 5 after 11. break. Yeah, 3% break. And then we'll do that.
I don't know how that was helpful or not, but there was.
Betsy, do you think I need to make a motion that says that about the sheriff not receiving uniforms as part of this?
Do it on the old nursing home?
Keep it handy, David.
He kept it, 2 days later, he came up, he opened it up.
Okay, on the agenda, this is the report of the old nursing home. We have had a lot of discussion on this. We've had a lot of back and forth on this. I am hoping that what we'll do, and what I have heard, is that the subcommittee has a report to give us. There is a motion that Representative Umberger let me read prior to the meeting. And I would like very much to be able to go and not have an overly drawn-out discussion about what's going to happen with the old nursing home. I think the subcommittee has done its work. We can listen to it. A lot of you were here last Monday, to listen to the presentation by Bonnet, Page and Stone. And if you stayed, you understood where the subcommittee was going. So hopefully what we can do is have a relatively short discussion on this. I will not necessarily tell you to keep your mouths shut, but I would like very much to be able to make this decision today and have it over and done with. Representative McConkey.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you.
Chairman. And I appreciate that vote of confidence of the work of the subcommittee. The subcommittee has met on several occasions and had lively discussion with participants, with Mr. Remick from Bonnet, Page and Stone. The subcommittee started at the point that the renovation of the old nursing home should cost no more than $1 million. We had asked for a solution in doing that would be a facility that would have at least a 20-year life period, so it could be what we considered sufficient for a reason for bonding without having to spend further funds. Presentation was shown last week by Bonnet, Page and Stone, which met the criteria that the subcommittee was working with, which was the removal of 4 wings. It was also, if you taking off the front of the building and leaving 10,000 square feet, the original core is 15,000. It was then removing the building down to 10,000 square feet, which more than met the needs of Bob with maintenance. It ensured enough room for the boiler system, both new and old. It allowed for a space to be at least as large as the laundry facility is now, with monies in there to modernize the space so that in the future, if laundry service was to be moved, electricity drains and so forth would be in place. It also, as shown, permitted at least 3,000 square feet of unspecified office space. It did not allow any funds for improving that space to what I would consider a turnkey operation, but it allowed for that possibility. So it allows the commissioners to move forward to find an occupant, and it was the understanding of the subcommittee with that occupant, and if an occupant is secured for that space, it is going to require additional funds, but that is not part of what we did. So the plan is presented to us, met our needs, and at the conclusion of that meeting, a motion was made. I would like to read the motion that I have here for the delegation so you can understand our recommendation.
Yeah. Can I just say that the motion that is in the minutes is a little convoluted?
Yeah.
And so we tried to freshen it up, so we went from A to B to C, as opposed to where we ended up with the motion at the end of our meeting.
So, Madam Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to read the recommendation of the subcommittee.
Yes.
Madam Chairman, the delegation approved the appropriation of $980,000 for the demolition of the 4 wings in the front of the old nursing home building, re-roofing approximately 10,000 square feet, improvement of the current laundry room, improvement of the current kitchen area to accommodate a maintenance area, and design, contingency, equipment, and other soft costs. The March 14, 2012 Bonnet, Page and Stone proposal shall be used as the baseline document for demolition and renovation of the old nursing home. Demolition of the wings in the entire area will not occur until after October 1, 2012. The commissioners are authorized to seek tenants for an area to be demolished, but must have signed contract for that use of space prior to October 1st, 2012. The tenant must agree to pay for all renovation costs associated with the use of any area currently identified for demolition. The commissioners are also authorized to seek tenants for approximately 3,000 square foot of the unfinished space within the 10,000 square foot core area being retained. The delegation must approve any contracts prior to the commissioners finalizing the contracts. This action will occur not later than October 1st, 2012.
Second.
So in summary, the recommendation is that all 4 wings come down, that the 15,000 foot core be reduced to 10,000 feet. Again, a new roof goes over that structure. The laundry room is reconfigured. The kitchen is reconfigured to accommodate maintenance. Leaves an envelope in there of 3,000 square feet. In addition to that, There's also 2 or 3 office spaces that are not called out for at this point in time.